Today in our 2008 Ford F-250, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Curt Custom Fifth Wheel Installation Kit. Part number C16448-204. Now here's what they look like once they're installed. They've got this nice black carbide finish that's going to match your Curt Q5 fifth wheel hitch. These are also compatible with Draw-Tite, hidden hitch, Reese, Valley, and Husky fifth wheel hitches. Now with the use of our custom brackets, it's going to cut down on our installation time over a universal kit because everything's going to line up with some pre-drilled holes in your frame. Some vehicles do not have the pre-drilled holes, but most of them do. Now another nice feature about these side plates is the bolts that come through the floor are actually on the outside of the frame rail, where on some of our fifth wheel hitches they're going to be on the inside and a lot harder to torque. So this is going to make these a lot quicker and easier to install. Now let's go ahead and show you how easy they are to install. We want to measure from the back edge of the bed to the front edge of our rail. Then our next step is going to be to center it in between our bed rails. So once we have it where we want it in our location, we're going to take an 1/8 inch bit. We're going to drill down through the back here. We're going to be using the outward most holes. So we'll go ahead and drill 2 small pilot holes on each side. Then we're going to set the side rails in place and make sure everything's going to line up. Once we have all those holes marked, we'll slide the rail out of the way, and we'll drill them out the rest of the way. Now we're going to take our side plate. You can tell which is the driver's side. It's going to have 1 tab in the front, 2 in the rear. I went ahead and put our drill bit down through the hole. Now we're going to set this up into place and take one of the 5/8 bolts that came with our kit. We'll set our plate into place and just temporarily put the bolt and the nut in here to hold up our side plate. We'll do this for both sides. And what we're looking for is our drill bit to be in the center of that hole. That way we know we've got it lined up properly. Now our next step, after we've made sure that it's going to line up with our brackets, is we're going to drill out our holes to 9/16 using a step bit. We're going to install these 1/2 inch by 2 inch carriage bolts. They're going to drop down through. Since ours is going to land on top of this bed rail, we won't be needing to put any kind of spacers on the top side, but we're going to have some spacers that go on the bottom side. So let's go ahead and drill out those holes. After we have our plate laid back into place, we'll go ahead and install all of our bolts. Now we can go to the bottom side and install our spacers and our nuts. But our instructions do not tell you this part, but you're going to want this block with the spacer is going to go in here in the bed rib. It'll have to slide in between this hat channel on the bed. So when we tighten it up, it's not going to crush it down. So I went ahead and took the bolts back out. I'm going to take a pry bar. We're just going to go ahead and pry this down. Get us some room so we can slide this spacer up in here. Now we can tap it in with a hammer. You want to just get it so the U-shaped part of the block is going to allow the bolt to drop down through. We're going to do that thing for the same on all of our hat channel brackets. Because after we put this bolt up in here, it's going to be kind of hard to get this back one spread down, so we're going to go ahead and do that before we put the rear one in place. That's okay, it's going to be bent down a little bit because as we tighten it up, it's going to suck it back up in there and straighten it out. Now we can go ahead and drop our bolts back down through. Now our rearward hole here is going to get the 2-inch wide spacer. We'll slide that up on there. Now on the front one, we're going to have a 1-inch wide square spacer, followed by a flange nut. Now we've gone ahead and set our second rail into place, making sure that it still slides up and down easily. And then we have it equal on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and mark some pilot holes and go through the bracket on this one as well. Now we can take it in larger holes out to the 9/16 hole that we had used in the front. Now that we have all of our holes drilled out, we'll clean it up and we can set our bar and our rail into place. Now we've gone ahead and set our rail back in and set our hitch on top of it to make sure everything's lined up properly. We'll drop our bolts in. We want to make sure it still moves easily up and down out of our rails. Then we can go to the bottom side and detach our hardware. Now we can take our larger blocks. We'll put them into place, and our flange nut. Then we'll take a 3/4 inch socket and we're going to run these all down and snug them up to the bed. We can go ahead and remove this 5/8 bolt that we put in here earlier. It's not going to stay there. Now our last step is going to be to put our center bolts in. We're going to have one in the front rail and one in the rear. They're going to go right in the center here on the outside, and now I'm going to go towards the front of the vehicle. So we'll go ahead and drill those out to our 9/16 hole. Clean that one as well, and then we can drop our bolts down through. Now we'll take our last 2-inch long 1/2-inch carriage bolts. We'll drop those down through our bed. And we'll go to the bottom side and then put on our hardware. Now we gotta go ahead and bend down the hatch channel on this center bolts as well as we did on the sides. We'll take our U-shaped block. I'm gonna place it in there. It's gonna take up our space. Then we'll put this larger block over top of that. And we can run it down. But we want to hold that U-shaped block in place until we get it tightened down. Now we'll repeat that process for the front one as well. Now we've gone ahead and tightened these down. So it pulled our plate up tight against the bottom of the floor. We're going to drill out this one to a 9/16 hole for our 1/2-inch carriage bolt. And the one here in the rear, we're going to drill out to 5/8. So we'll go ahead and start with our 1/2-inch, or our 9/16 bit. Now we've already gone and checked, there's nothing on the back side, which definitely on the rear one we're going to have a wiring harness in the way, so we're going to have to move that one. Now you can see on the driver's side, our hole is going to be unobstructed, so we're going to take our shorter 1.25 inch carriage bolt with a large block. We'll place it through the hole. And on the outside, we're going to use the flange nut. Now we can go ahead and run down our carriage bolt. And we'll move on the other side where we've already drilled the hole in the front. We're going to take our supplied fish wire. I'm going to put it through the hole. And we're going to try and feed it up on the top side of our shock bracket where we can access it to be able to put on our block and our carriage bolt. We'll place on our block, followed by our 1¼ long 1/2" carriage bolt. And we're going to tuck it up in here behind our shock tower. And then we're going to fish it to the outside of the frame rail. There's room enough to hold your finger on the back side to hold it there in place. And we'll bring that out, and then we can run that bolt down as well. We're using a 9/16 on those also. Now we're going to have this wiring harness here. It's going to be attached by a clip. Sometimes the clip will come out and sometimes it'll break. And we're going to take that wire and we're going to put a bungee cord on it and pull it down to keep out of the way as we drill our hole. Now we're going to take our 5/8 drill bit and we're going to mark the hole. And then we'll take a smaller bit and we can make a pilot hole and work our way up. Now we're going to take this 1/2" thick spacer block on our 5/8 bolt. We're going to put it through the hole we drilled in the frame. On the outside we're going to put a flange nut, 5/8 flange nut. Then we can go ahead and run that down. And we're using a 24mm socket. We use the torque specifications listed in our instructions. We're going to start with the ones on our bracket, to go through our bracket. And we'll repeat this process for the other side. And the last ones we'll have tightened will be the 2 center bolts on our rail. Now we can move on to our side plates. We'll tighten up the 2 1/2". We'll do that for both sides. Then we're going to come back and tighten up our 5/8 bolts. You're going to have to hold the back side with a wrench. We've gone ahead and taken off our bungee strap, placed our wire back in and reattached it. Now it's going to be out of the way and it's not going to be harmed by our new 5th wheel rails. And that's going to do it for our look at and install of the Curt Custom 5th Wheel Installation Kit, part number C16448-204 on our 2008 Ford F-250.
Click the link below to shop, learn more, or visit us at eTrailer.com.